I was told over and over that I wasn't welcome at any family's event. So when I got married, I didn't invite them, and they lost it demanding to fix things. But I made one call that ended it all. My name's Aaron. I'm 31. And if you told me 5 years ago that my wedding day would be the biggest act of quiet revenge I'd ever pull off, I would have laughed you out of the room. I was never the type to hold grudges. You know, always the one who tried to keep the peace even when it hurt. But when your own family spends most of your life reminding you that you're unwanted, something inside you eventually changes. It's not an explosion, not a meltdown. It's slower, colder, like a door inside you quietly locks, and you throw away the key without even realizing it. Growing up, I was the weird one in my family. Not rebellious, not a troublemaker, just different. While my siblings Mike and Jenna were all about sports and popularity, I was the kid who loved books, played chess, and wanted to talk about space and history at the dinner table. You'd think being different would just mean some teasing, maybe a little distance. But in my family, it meant something more cruel. Exclusion disguised as just kidding, or you wouldn't enjoy it anyway. It started small. Birthday parties where my invite must have gotten lost. Family outings where someone forgot to tell me. I learned not to take it personally, or at least I tried. But then came the weddings. First Jenna's when I was 22. She sat me down a month before a big fake smile plastered on her face and said, "Aaron, I just think it's better if you don't come. It's going to be a very normal wedding, not really your scene." I remember staring at her blinking, wondering if I was hallucinating. She hugged me like she was doing me a favor and promised to send pictures. I didn't go. I didn't fight it. I didn't even cry, though. The lump in my throat made it impossible to eat for days. Mom and Dad brushed it off like it was no big deal. "She's the bride. She gets to choose," Dad said gruffly, barely looking up from his newspaper. Mom added, "Besides, you would have been miserable there, surrounded by all those people you don't know." As if I wasn't family too. As if I hadn't grown up with half the people on her guest list. Then came Mike's wedding 2 years later. This time, they didn't even bother pretending. I found out about it through a Facebook post, a blurry, candid shot of my entire family dressed to the nines laughing around a banquet table. The caption was something smug like, "Family is everything." I sat there staring at the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. Not a single call, not a text, nothing. Just radio silence, and then a public reminder that I wasn't part of the club. You'd think after all that I'd be done with them, cut my losses, move on. But hope's a stubborn thing. It clings to you even when it shouldn't. I kept trying. Holidays, birthdays, random check-ins. Sometimes they'd respond, sometimes not. When they did, it was always with this thin layer of politeness stretched over obvious disinterest. They'd ask about work in a tone that said they didn't really care, or mention how quiet my life seemed, like that was some kind of failure. Every visit felt like stepping onto a stage where I was playing a part nobody wanted to see. The final straw wasn't even a big blow-up. It was a random Saturday afternoon about a year before my wedding. I'd driven an hour out to Mike's new housewarming party, lugging a gift card and a smile determined stupidly to keep trying. When I got there, I rang the doorbell 3 times before Mike finally opened the door. He looked genuinely surprised to see me. Hey," he said, scratching the back of his neck awkwardly. Mom said you probably wouldn't show." "I'm here," I said, forcing a grin. "Brought you a little something." He took the gift card like it was a bomb about to go off. Inside the house was packed. Laughter music, the smell of barbecue. I recognized faces people I'd grown up around, but no one really seemed to recognize me. Or maybe they just didn't care. I mingled for a bit, trying to make conversation, but it was like shouting into a void. People gave me polite smiles and then turned back to their real conversations. I felt like an outsider at my own family's gathering. The kicker. Later that night, someone, I think it was Jenna, half drunk and slurring her words, laughed loudly across the yard and said, "Well, at least Aaron didn't ruin anything today, must be a new record." The whole table burst into laughter. I stood there frozen, the plastic cup in my hand cracking under my grip. No one defended me. No one even looked guilty. It was just another joke at my expense, another reminder that in their eyes I was a burden, a punchline. That was the night I decided I was done. Not loudly, not dramatically. I didn't storm out or make a scene. I just left, slipped out the side gate while they were busy laughing, drove home in silence, and deleted the group chat from my phone without another thought. Fast forward a year later, and something amazing happened. I met Lisa. She was everything my family wasn't. Warm kind, actually interested in who I was as a person. She loved my nerdy facts, my quiet nature, my bad puns. For the first time, I felt seen, truly seen. When I proposed, she said yes with tears in her eyes, and we started planning the wedding almost immediately. We both agreed we wanted it to be small, close friends, chosen family people who actually cared about us. As we sat one night with our guest list spread out in front of us, Lisa hesitated. "What about your family?" she asked gently. "Do you want to invite them?" I thought about it. I really did. Thought about extending an olive branch. About how weddings are supposed to bring people together. Then I thought about the look on Jenna's face when she told me I wasn't welcome. The smug Facebook post, the drunken jokes, the years of being treated like a ghost at my own family events. "No," I said finally, my voice steady. "I don't." Lisa just smiled and kissed my forehead. "Good, because I want this day to be about love, not obligation." Word got out anyway. Of course, small towns have big mouths. A week after we sent out the invitations, I got a text from Mom. "Heard you're getting married. When are you sending our invites?" No congratulations, no warmth, just an expectation. Like it was a given they'd be included no matter how they treated me. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "There's no invitation," I wrote simply. The explosion was immediate. Group texts blew up. Angry messages poured in from Mom, Dad, Mike, Jenna. Guilt trips, accusations, even some pathetic attempts to pretend like we were always so close and they couldn't imagine missing my big day. Jenna even went so far as to post a vague, passive-aggressive Facebook status. Funny how some people forget where they come from. Hope they enjoy their little party without real family. I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I didn't even read most of the messages. Instead, Lisa and I poured all that energy into making our day exactly what we wanted it to be. Friends who cheered the loudest at our engagement, co-workers who'd seen me at my lowest and lifted me back up, neighbors who treated me like family when my own blood didn't. These were the people who would stand by us as we promised forever to each other. And when the day finally came, when I stood at the altar and watched Lisa walk toward me with the biggest, brightest smile I'd ever seen, I realized something. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel unwanted. I felt chosen. But that wasn't even the sweetest part. Because the real surprise came later, right after the ceremony, when someone pulled me aside with a sly grin. It was my old neighbor, Mr. Halverson, a wiry guy in his 70s, who still somehow had more energy than most people half his age. He leaned in, barely able to contain his smirk, and said, "Aaron, you're going to want to see this." Curious, I followed him over to his small group of friends huddled around someone's phone. When they noticed me, they practically vibrated with barely disguised glee. "Look what's blowing up on Facebook," one of them said, turning the screen toward me. There, in real time, was a series of frantic, angry posts from Jenna, Mike, and a cherry on top, my own mother. Status after status, complaining about how selfish I was, how family means forgiveness, how no matter how someone hurts you, blood is blood and you shouldn't turn your back. It was pure, messy, public meltdown gold. Jenna's post was the most dramatic. "Can't believe my own brother would exclude us from his wedding after everything our family has done for him. Absolutely disgusting behavior. Some people just don't understand the meaning of family." Someone had commented underneath it. "Didn't you leave him out of your wedding?" No response. Just a bunch of defensive likes and a handful of equally petty comments from her friends trying to back her up. Mike's was even worse. "Guess Aaron forgot who helped raise him. Maybe he'll remember when he's all alone someday." Another commenter responded, "You didn't invite him to yours, right? Sounds like karma to me." Mom's post was the most pathetic of all. A blurry photo of a family gathering an old one years ago with a passive-aggressive caption. "Some people forget who loved them first. Loved me." I almost laughed. When have they ever really loved me? I could feel the eyes of my friends on me, waiting for some reaction. Maybe anger, maybe sadness. But I just shook my head and smiled. Because standing there with Lisa's hand slipping into mine, and our wedding party laughing and cheering behind us, it finally hit me. I didn't owe them anything. I wasn't a lonely, desperate kid anymore begging for a seat at their table. I had built my own table, my own life, my own family, and they weren't welcome at it. The reception went on like a dream after that. We had rented this cozy little vineyard just outside of town, and the weather was perfect. The kind of sunset you only see once in a lifetime, gold and pink spilling across the sky like someone had painted it just for us. Lisa and I danced under fairy lights while our friends cheered and toasted and sang way too loudly. The cake was a little crooked. The playlist skipped once or twice, and someone spilled a drink all over the dance floor. It was perfect. Still, the drama wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating so hard it fell off the nightstand. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails, texts. At first, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally cooled down. Maybe they wanted to apologize to make amends. But when I opened this first voicemail, it became crystal clear that wasn't the case. Mom's voice tight and cold. "Aaron, you need to call me back immediately. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're going to regret cutting off your family. You'll see. No one else will ever love you like we do." Another one from Jenna. "Congrats on your sad little party. Hope it was worth it, traitor." Mike's was the cherry on top. Just a long sigh followed by, "You'll come crawling back one day. You always do." I sat there on the edge of the bed listening to them one after another while Lisa slept peacefully beside me. Every angry word, every guilt trip, every threat, it all rolled off me like water. It didn't hurt anymore. It didn't even sting. It just sounded pathetic. I could have replied, could have sent a long, scathing message, could have ranted and raved and told them exactly what I thought of them. But instead, I did the one thing they never could stand. I ignored them. I blocked every number, deleted every message, shut the door permanently this time. Later that afternoon, Lisa and I sat on the back porch of our rental cabin watching the sun sink behind the hills, sipping cheap champagne straight from the bottle. She leaned her head against my shoulder and whispered, "Any regrets?" I thought about it for a second. "Nope," I said, squeezing her hand. "None at all." Because in the end, they were right about one thing. Family is everything. But sometimes you have to choose the right one. And I had. It didn't take long for the silence to get under their skin. For the first few days after the wedding, it was just noise, angry voicemails, furious Facebook posts, passive-aggressive texts sent at all hours of the night. I ignored them all, choosing instead to sink into newlywed life with Lisa. We slept late, explored little towns hand in hand, and laughed about stupid things like how I always lost the hotel key and how she could never finish a cup of coffee before it went cold. It was peaceful. It was exactly what I had fought so hard to find. But apparently peace was something my family couldn't handle, not when they weren't in control. The first shift came about a week later. The text from Mom changed tone. Less rage, more desperation. "Family should stick together. Call me. We're still your parents. We deserve to be part of your life. Think about how hurt we are, Aaron, after everything we did for you." Still no apology. Still no acknowledgement of what they had done. Just this twisted, manipulative version of reality where I was the villain for finally walking away. When that didn't work, they doubled down. I got an email from Dad, an actual email, which was hilarious because the man could barely figure out how to unlock his phone without help. It was short, blunt, and painfully transparent. "We're still your legal family. Don't think you can erase that. No love, no regret." Just a reminder that in their minds, family wasn't built on love or respect. It was ownership. Lisa and I joked about it at first, made up bingo cards for which guilt trip they'd try next. "We're your real family. You're being selfish. You'll regret this someday." It was almost funny how predictable they were until they showed up. It was a Wednesday mid-morning. I was working remotely from our little living room. Lisa was in the kitchen humming along to some cheesy 90s playlist when there was a knock at the door. Not a normal knock either. Loud, frantic, impatient. Lisa froze spatula halfway to the stove. Expecting someone, she asked. I shook my head slowly. A bad feeling settled heavy in my gut. I crossed to the door and peered through the peephole. And sure enough, there they were. Mom. Dad, Jenna, and Mike all crammed onto the tiny porch like they were posing for some grim family portrait. Mom had a casserole dish in her hands like some awful prop, smiling the stiff, unsettling smile. Dad stood stiff and glowering beside her. Jenna was wearing sunglasses like she was shielding herself from me. Mike looked bored, scrolling through his phone. I didn't open the door. Instead, I cracked the window just enough to hear them. "Hi, sweetheart. Mom called overly bright. "We thought we'd come by and talk. You know, as a family." Her voice was sweet, too sweet. The kind of sugary tone she used when she was trying to hide the fact that she was furious. "No thanks," I said calmly. "We're busy." There was a beat of silence. "Aaron," Dad barked, stepping closer. "Enough of this nonsense. We're not leaving until you come out here and face your family." Lisa appeared behind me, hands slipping into mine, her face pale. "They're not going to just leave, are they?" she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "They're not." I watched as Mom's fake smile faltered. She set the casserole dish down on the porch railing with a loud clunk and crossed her arms. "This isn't you, Aaron," she said. "You're not this cold, this cruel." Her voice cracked just enough to make it sound like she was the real victim here. Like years of exclusion, mockery, and dismissal had never happened. "You're letting her poison you against us." Jenna chimed in, pulling her sunglasses down just enough to glare at Lisa. That was enough. I opened the window a little wider, met Jenna's gaze head-on, and said, "Nobody poisoned me. You did that all on your own." The smile slipped completely off her face. Mike finally looked up from his phone, scowling. "Aaron, seriously," he said. "Grow up. You're throwing away your real family over what some hurt feelings, boo-hoo." Lisa tightened her grip on my hand, but I could feel her trembling slightly, not from fear, from anger. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "You didn't want me at your weddings. You didn't want me at family holidays. You didn't want me around when it actually mattered. So now you don't get to crash into my life when it's convenient for you. You made your choice a long time ago. Now I've made mine. You'll regret this," Mom hissed. The fake tears were gone now, replaced with naked, ugly rage. "You'll regret cutting us out when you have nobody left." I smiled a real honest smile and said, "I already have everything I need." And with that, I closed the window. I didn't slam it, didn't yell, didn't make a scene. I just shut them out. For a moment, there was stunned silence outside. Then the banging started, fists pounding against the door. Angry shouts. Lisa backed away, pulling me with her toward the kitchen. "Should we call the cops?" she asked. I was about to answer when we heard it. A loud crack like something breaking, and then another. They weren't just yelling anymore. They were trying to force their way in. I didn't panic. Not because I wasn't scared. Trust me, my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, but because something inside me had shifted. The part of me that used to freeze to beg to hope they'd change. It was gone, burned out. I looked at Lisa, who was clutching my hand so tightly her knuckles were white, and I realized this wasn't about fear anymore. It was about making sure they never got the chance to hurt me again. "Call the police," I said, voice low and even. Lisa didn't hesitate. She grabbed her phone and ducked behind the kitchen counter. I stayed where I was, standing firm between her and the door, even as the banging grew louder, more frantic. "We're not leaving without you, Aaron!" Dad roared from outside, his voice with rage. "You're going to talk to us." Another loud bang. The door shuddered in its frame. I could hear Mom screeching something about ungrateful little traitors and Jenna cursing under her breath. Mike, true to form, was the loudest, shouting threats about how I'd regret this, about how nobody else would put up with me, once Lisa realized what a loser I was. I didn't respond, didn't even flinch. I just stood there, breathing slow and steady, until I heard the sweetest sound in the world, the distant wail of sirens. The banging stopped almost immediately. I moved to the window just in time to see Mom snatching the casserole dish off the porch like that was somehow going to save face, while Dad barked at Mike and Jenna to act normal. They scattered, trying to pretend they were just standing around casually chatting like they hadn't been trying to break down my door 30 seconds earlier. The police cruiser pulled up, fast tires crunching against the gravel driveway. 2 officers got out, 1 male, 1 female, both looking grim and very, very tired, like they'd seen this kind of suburban disaster way too many times. I opened the door carefully, stepping outside with my hands visible so there'd be no confusion. "Morning, officers," I said calmly. "Thanks for coming." The female officer nodded. "We got a call about a disturbance. Can you tell us what's going on?" Before I could answer, Mom rushed forward, casserole dish still clutched in her hands like a ridiculous shield. "This is our son," she gushed, all fake tears and trembling voice. "We're just trying to talk to him. He's been brainwashed by her." She jabbed a finger toward the house where Lisa was peeking out from behind the curtain, and now he thinks he can just cut off his family. The officer blinked, unimpressed. So you were trying to force entry into the home? No. Mom gasped. We were just... He wouldn't open the door and we needed to. We needed to talk. Dad stepped up, looming like he always did when he thought intimidation would work. We have a right to see him. He's our son. The male officer sighed, pulling out a small notebook. Sir, it doesn't work like that. He's an adult. You have no legal right to enter his home without permission. If you continue to harass or threaten him, he can press charges. The color drained from Mom's face. Jenna started muttering under her breath. Mike actually had the gall to roll his eyes like he was the one being inconvenienced. I took a deep breath and said loud enough for all of them to hear. I want to press charges for trespassing and attempted forced entry, and I want a restraining order. For the first time all morning, the whole porch went completely silent. Mom's mouth dropped open. Dad's face turned an alarming shade of red. Jenna's sunglasses slipped down her nose, and Mike actually took a step back like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. You don't mean that, Mom stammered. Aaron, we're family. The word family snapped something clean in me. Not with anger, not with grief, just finality. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, no, we're not. Not anymore. The officers separated us after that, took statements, asked questions. Lisa came out eventually, holding my hand the entire time, steady and solid as a rock. My family kept trying, begging, pleading, threatening. They flipped between tactics so fast it would have been comical if it weren't so sad. Mom wept about losing her baby. Dad muttered about ungrateful brats. Jenna tried to shame me, ranting about how nobody turns their back on their family unless they're broken inside. Mike just sneered like the whole thing was beneath him. The officers weren't moved. They issued them a formal warning right there on the spot and made it very clear that if they ever showed up again, even once, they'd be arrested. I filed the paperwork for the restraining order that afternoon. And just like that, with a few signatures, a few hard lines drawn in the sand, the door slammed shut forever. The days that followed were strangely quiet, eerily so. No more angry calls, no more guilt trips, no more desperate Facebook posts. It was like they finally realized they'd lost whatever power they thought they had over me. I won't pretend it didn't hurt sometimes. There were moments, small, sneaky moments, where a part of me missed the idea of family. Missed what could have been if they had been different people. Holidays were hard for a while. Seeing other families smiling together, laughing over shared memories. It left a hollow ache in my chest that took time to fill. But it did fill slowly with better people. Real friends, chosen family, people who didn't love me because they had to, but because they wanted to. People who saw me for who I was and stayed. Lisa's parents who welcomed me like a second son without a second thought. My coworkers who threw us a surprise post-honeymoon party with a cake that said, "Welcome to your real family." Neighbors who dropped off casseroles and homemade cards when they heard about the restraining order. Not because they pitied us, but because they respected the choice to cut out toxicity. Piece by piece, the life I'd always wanted came together. Not the life they tried to force me into, not the life they abandoned me in. My life. About 6 months after the wedding, Lisa and I hosted a little barbecue at our place. Just close friends, good food, lots of laughter. At one point I stepped back, beer in hand, and just watched. Watched my wife laughing with her best friend over burnt burgers. Watched our neighbors' kids chasing each other around the yard with water guns. Watched a group of people who genuinely loved and accepted me exactly as I was. And I realized they hadn't just missed my wedding. They had missed everything. Every good thing that came after every milestone, every celebration, every ordinary beautiful day. All because they couldn't be bothered to love me the way I deserved. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel sad about it. I felt free. Truly, finally, completely free. And I wasn't ever giving that up again. Not for anything, not for anyone. And certainly not for people who only ever saw me as something they were entitled to control. As the sun dipped low and the fireflies came out, Lisa slipped her hand into mine and leaned her head on my shoulder. "We made a good life," she whispered. I smiled, kissed the top of her head, and whispered back, "Yeah, we really did." And this time I knew without a doubt that nobody could ever take it away from me.